The Whispering Walls. Unveiling the Secrets of a Haunted Mansion. A supernatural horror story. In an isolated mansion shrouded in mystery, Emily Sullivan uncovers a chilling truth that defies the natural world. As she delves into the house's dark past, the malevolent force lurking within the walls reveals its horrifying presence. Prepare for a spine-tingling journey through terror and the supernatural as Emily battles the unseen horrors that haunt her new home. Emily Sullivan had never been one to shy away from challenges. When she received the news that she had inherited her great-aunt's estate, a sprawling, dilapidated mansion on the outskirts of the small town of Blackwood, she saw it as an opportunity to escape her bustling city life. The old house, with its ivy-clad facade and centuries-old charm, seemed like the perfect retreat. The realtor's vague descriptions of the property's unique character and rich history did little to dissuade her enthusiasm. After all, how bad could an old house be? Upon arriving, Emily was greeted by the house's imposing silence, a stark contrast to the constant noise of the city. The mansion loomed before her, its grandeur obscured by years of neglect. The windows, boarded up with rotting planks, allowed only slivers of light to filter through. The once majestic garden was now an overgrown tangle of weeds and dead vines. The air was heavy with the scent of mildew and decay, and Emily could not shake the feeling that the house was watching her, its empty eye sockets filled with secrets. Her first night in the mansion was unsettling. The quiet was thick and oppressive, and every creak of the floorboard seemed amplified in the darkness. Emily tried to shake off her unease by focusing on unpacking and settling in. Yet, as she prepared for bed, she noticed strange markings on the walls, crude symbols etched into the wood, partially hidden beneath layers of peeling wallpaper. She chalked it up to the eccentricities of an old house, but the sensation of being watched persisted. As Emily lay in bed, attempting to sleep, she heard a soft whispering. It was so faint she thought she might be imagining it. The whispers grew louder, becoming a chorus of indistinct voices. Emily, heart racing, got up to investigate, but the house was as silent as before. She forced herself to believe it was just the house settling and tried to sleep, though the eerie feeling lingered. Days passed, and Emily began to explore the mansion more thoroughly. She discovered hidden compartments and dusty old furniture that hinted at the house's once grand past. Each room seemed to tell a story of a bygone era, but Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The mansion had a sprawling layout with numerous rooms and hallways. Emily found herself drawn to the basement, a place she had avoided at first due to its dark, foreboding presence. The basement door was heavy and creaked ominously as she opened it. Inside, the basement was a maze of old storage and cobweb-covered relics. One day, while exploring the basement, Emily stumbled upon an old, hidden door behind a bookshelf. The door was rusted and difficult to open, but with effort she managed to pry it ajar. Behind it was a narrow staircase leading to a small, dusty chamber. The air was stifling, and Emily felt an icy chill as she descended. The chamber was filled with old diaries and books, their pages yellowed with age. Emily's curiosity led her to examine them. Many were written in a shaky hand, recounting strange rituals and occurrences. Among the documents was a large, ancient tome bound in cracked leather. The title was faded, but the symbols on the cover were unsettling. As she read through the diaries, Emily learned about the house's previous occupants, a family who had vanished under mysterious circumstances. The diaries hinted at the family's involvement in occult practices and dark rituals performed in the basement. The more Emily read, the more she felt a growing sense of dread. The whispers she had heard seemed to align with the descriptions of trapped souls mentioned in the diaries. Emily's investigations led her to delve deeper into the town's history. She visited the local library and spoke with elderly residents who shared stories of the house's dark past. The townsfolk were reluctant to speak, casting wary glances and offering cryptic warnings about the mansion. One elderly woman, Mrs. Thompson, finally divulged some details. She revealed that the house had been built by a man named Victor Caldwell, who was rumored to be involved in occult practices. Caldwell was said to have conducted gruesome ceremonies in the basement, seeking to summon a malevolent spirit. The townspeople had long believed that Caldwell's dark rituals had cursed the house, trapping souls within its walls. Emily returned to the mansion with renewed determination. She continued to research the occult practices described in the diaries and attempted to piece together the ritual described in the tome. As she worked, the supernatural occurrences became more frequent. Objects moved on their own, and shadows seemed to come alive, creeping along the walls. Emily's sense of reality began to blur as the house's influence grew stronger. One night, Emily experienced a vivid and horrifying vision. As she lay in bed, she saw shadowy figures materialize in her room, their eyes glowing with malevolent intent. The figures whispered in a language she couldn't understand, their voices a haunting melody of despair. Emily woke up in a cold sweat, the vision lingering in her mind. The whispers had grown louder and more coherent, seemingly trying to communicate or torment her. Desperate to understand what she was dealing with, Emily sought out Dr. Harold Langley, a local historian with expertise in paranormal phenomena. Langley agreed to help, intrigued by the evidence Emily had gathered. He examined the diary entries in the ancient tome, confirming Caldwell's dark legacy. Langley explained that Caldwell's ritual had indeed succeeded in summoning a vengeful spirit, but it had gone horribly wrong. Instead of controlling the entity, Caldwell had inadvertently bound it to the house, trapping countless souls within its walls. The entity had been feeding on their anguish, growing more powerful with each passing year. With this knowledge, Emily and Langley prepared for a final confrontation with the entity. They devised a plan to perform a ritual to banish the spirit and break the curse. The ritual required them to confront the entity in the basement, where its power was strongest. As they prepared for the ritual, the house's atmosphere became increasingly hostile. The whispers turned into a cacophony of screams, and the shadows grew more aggressive. Emily and Langley could feel the house resisting their efforts, the walls seeming to pulse with malevolent energy. The night of the ritual arrived, and Emily and Langley descended into the basement. The air was thick with an oppressive darkness, and the walls seemed to close in around them. They set up the ritual circle, placing candles and symbols as described in the tome. The basement was filled with a sense of foreboding, and the temperature dropped drastically. As they began the incantation, the entity revealed itself in its full, horrifying form. It was a nightmarish amalgamation of shadows and tortured faces, its eyes burning with an otherworldly fire. The entity howled in rage as the ritual disrupted its hold on the house. The confrontation was brutal. The entity lashed out, slamming Emily and Langley against the walls. The basement was filled with an eerie, pulsating light as the entity fought against the binding spell. Shadows writhed and twisted, taking on grotesque forms that clawed at their sanity. Emily's heart pounded as she struggled to complete the ritual, her voice trembling but determined. The entity's attacks grew more vicious, and Emily was thrown to the ground, her body battered by the dark force. The basement echoed with the entity's wrath, and Emily felt a cold, crushing darkness suffocate her. But with a final, desperate surge of strength, she completed the incantation. The entity let out a deafening, agonized scream as it was forcibly pulled into the binding circle. The room was engulfed in a blinding light, and the walls trembled as the entity was driven back into the depths. With one final anguished roar, the entity was banished, and the basement fell eerily silent. Exhausted and traumatized, Emily emerged from the basement. The mansion was quiet, the oppressive atmosphere lifted, but the memories of the horrors she had faced lingered. The house seemed to have regained a semblance of normalcy, but Emily knew it would never be the same. She decided to leave Blackwood, unable to bear the house's lingering presence. As she drove away, she glanced back at the mansion, now a distant silhouette against the horizon. The whispers had ceased, but the shadows remained in her mind, a haunting reminder of the darkness that lurked within the walls of the Whispering Walls. Emily reflected on her ordeal and the nature of evil. The experience had changed her, leaving her with a deeper understanding of the supernatural and the fragility of human sanity. She had faced the darkness and emerged, but the echoes of the house's past would forever haunt her thoughts. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like the video, share it with others, and subscribe for more thrilling tales. Dive into our collection of supernatural horror stories for more chilling experiences. See you in the next story.